So it's really a lifelong journey. I'm almost 47 years old, and it's been a lifelong trauma, mental health journey that impacted the first half of my life. And then I had a little break. And then the last decade, it really has been a dominant state of suffering for multiple reasons and some very real traumatic things that were happening currently in my life, some significant complex trauma from my childhood. And just navigating through depression and who knows what other diagnoses that had come along the way. And I was really, you know, I don't say this in any judgment because each of us on our own path, but sometimes people talk about they had a dark night of the soul. And, you know, I'm one of those people that have had multiple. I feel like I've lived a life of a dark night of the soul, and just constantly being called to the depth of being to excavate my inner landscape on the deepest possible realms. And in some ways, there's no reason I should be alive. Like so many people I know, I'm not unique that way, who have struggled. But there's just an inner calling to heal. And when I reached out looking for you, I was looking for an EMDR therapist. And I had reached so many times where I had reached such depth of darkness, I didn't think there was another level. And really, I was an utterly broken woman when I met you, and had just really tried everything that I could think of that spoke to me and attuned with me. And I had enormous tools. I had knowledge, I had tools. Nothing made sense of why I couldn't make a foundational shift in my life. And part of it was, you know, the deeper understanding about nervous system and understanding what regulation works in that journey. But really meeting you, and the first time that we met, you did something for me that I didn't know was possible in a first therapy session. One was you held a space for me, a deep knowing that I could feel. Like, so you're talking about a word that doesn't exist in English. It was a felt knowing that you held space for me, that there was a possibility for me to know life outside of suffering. That's you can't put your finger on that. You have that skill and that presence that I felt. And the other thing you did was you took me on a guided visualization, which I had done a million times, but you gave me a cork. You gave me a container, and it allowed me to believe not only in the possibility and to know that you were the person that was going to help guide me and be my way shower, really. And I think the third thing, so you held a space for me outside of suffering. You offered me a moment, a respite of safety that I didn't know was possible. But you also, more than anything, you were my boomerang. You were going to stand there and push it all back into me and tell me and guide me, not push it. That's it. It's not the way I would want to put it, but the idea that you were never going to continue to help me externalize my power. You were going to help not give it back to me because you don't have it, but you were going to help me remember that it was always within me. And you were that mirror, that boomerang that was going to represent for me what a true wisdom teacher is, which is, how do I be present with you so you can know your own wisdom? And that I'll be forever grateful for. And that's before we even started with medicine. So I was already in. Yeah.
Oh, I am just so touched by the kindness of your words, Aura. Thank you so much. So let's talk about the medicine, because it's really the medicine that's, you know, like, so first of all, I think the medicine starts working way before there is even talk of the medicine. And that's a bit of a mystery that, you come to know. So what are your recollections around how we got to the medicine?
So like you said, I mean, I think these medicines, they're living spirits, no matter what kind they are, no matter what they're made from, they just start speaking to you. However, it may come through a video you see, it may come through a little summit you watch. It had been in my awareness. As I had been diving deep into trauma work before we had met, I had been following Gabor Mate, and he had spoken a lot about ayahuasca. And although that particular medicine didn't resonate with me, the whole concept of expanded consciousness and healing outside of the mental capacity made just, it resonated in its truth for me, not in its specifics for me. So by the time I met you, there was an antennae, and I had always believed that some form of medicines would be a part of my journey. I just didn't know how, when, or what. So focusing on ketamine, I think it was probably, I don't remember if it was you who brought ketamine to me. I mean, I was so engaged, and I'm kind of obsessed with listening and learning. So it's possible that I'd heard of ketamine, but it was really probably you who mostly introduced it to me. And it was introduced, and I do not like this term. I think the word treatment resistant depression feels very blaming, that somehow I'm resistant to being healed. And I just don't believe that. But for the sake of vernacular that's used, we spoke about it in terms of it being for a brain like mine that's just been, the programming was so embedded, the way that my nerves, my neurons were wiring in my brain, that it was a really, there was a lot of research and a lot that showed that there was a lot of potential with ketamine for someone like me. And, you know, it was during COVID. And so we started on Zoom, and we had already such a beautiful relationship. There had already been so much trust that had been built. And you and I have a dance together where not only is there deep trust, which is key, you come in with an enormous amount of experience, knowledge, and wisdom. So yes, you might have a plan, but really your plan is to follow me.
Yes.
And because of your experience, there's nothing off the table. And because I'm on a deep spiritual journey, and that was the other piece, was, you know, when I talk about my therapist, I actually call you more of my spiritual way shower than my therapist. And it wouldn't have worked otherwise because of the language and the things that speak to my consciousness. So, you know, so there was part of how you guide me, then allow me to guide myself, but there was also, it's the integration. So we'll speak about that, because the integration piece is a massive piece. But I just wasn't afraid of anything that would have come up, because there's nothing logical about these journeys. Though some medicines bring out more abstract experiences, I actually found much of the ketamine experiences to be more symbolic and metaphoric. So there was what to pull from and talk about. But so we had that established. I felt secure. There was always somebody home, and we began a journey of exploring ketamine together for myself. And there were times where we did it, I think for quite a while, it was working as every 6 weeks, and there seemed to be a maintenance element for me. And then there were times where things really were difficult, and the old programming in my brain and my DMN was just so stuck, and I had no chance. And then we did a couple of higher doses, 3 weeks in a row. That also really, it's like a re-oiling of the brain. I don't know how to say it. And I'm not, this journey's messy. This is not a linear journey. It's hard. It's a warrior's journey. And it's a journey through darkness over and over and over again. And it's been intense and horrifying at times, and yet there was no other way. And it's brought me to a much deeper, greater light than I could have ever imagined. And I knew early on in my life that the only way to get anywhere was through versus around. I knew that enough, that I think that's why we worked well together, because you had a partner in me, because I knew that that healing was my responsibility. Whatever traumas had happened around me that weren't my fault, I came with the knowledge that healing was my responsibility, and therefore we could do a lot of work together. So I guess that's my initial opening about ketamine. It's just really profound and really deep. Like, I was surprised in an hour and a half how much could happen. As I've become a very good journeyer. So I enjoy the process. I enjoy going deep. I enjoy going on wherever it'll take me, even with a brain like mine, and got a very active brain and mind.
You have an enormously creative mind, and I love that you don't have the same kind of boundaries. I love that we can both be curious, and as you said, nothing is off the table, which makes it very, very safe for you to express. One of the things that I found very interesting about you is that, like, a lot of your journeys were very somatic. And yes, and so I really love that. Psychologists don't do a lot of somatic work. Unfortunately, we just seem to be hands off around the body, and that's where trauma is. So I really love that you became so much more comfortable in your body and had many journeys around your body because you live in your body.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I spoke about trauma work and nervous system, but the other piece is the embodiment and the somatic piece, which I wouldn't be where I am without that. And
Yes.
being okay with me shaking for an hour, 5 hours, however long, knowing you were okay with it and I was okay with it, allowed my body to do what it needed to do. And nothing can replace. There's no prefrontal cortex conversation that's going to happen that can replace what a shaking experience might do, or whatever it is. And a pre-verbal, body experience, somatic expression. So all of that, because I am so expressive, I have that creative element. My body, once I was able to allow it to do so, it showed me the way. Yeah.
Right. I like that you said that the medicine will definitely show the way, even a synthetic medicine like ketamine, right? Because I admit I had my biases in the beginning, but ketamine can do really very, very, very remarkable work.
Yeah, and even someone like me, and again, I say this without judgment, because to each their own, and we're all on our own journey. But it was important for me. I had done the journey with pharmaceuticals for the first half of my life. They were very damaging to me. I had been through 12 sessions of ECT, which wiped my brain and changed me forever at the age of 19. But when you're still struggling so much, but still choosing, a more holistic approach, it's hard to your family, to yourself, like, how do you explain why that's just the way it has to be? And then to find something that makes sense to me, that propels you, is a catalyst for actual. I mean, I remember moments where I would either text you or in a session where I'd just say, like, there's foundational structural shifts that are happening, and hands down, the medicine is on its own beautiful, but without the integration and without the responsibility of the day in and day out. I mean, healing has been my full-time job, period. I don't know what else I would have done. And I was committed without wanting to be committed to it. And even sometimes healing became its own addiction, right? And really the rest and this compassion. So between the integration and the ketamine, the work on its own, I needed reset. I continue to still need resets.
Sure.
And these medicines are powerful for that. And when you just feel like you're constantly swimming uphill, nothing is working, it doesn't make sense. These medicines can be very profound for the person that it works for. Absolutely. They've changed my life. They've saved my life, hands down. Yeah,
agreed. They're not for everyone, but for those that they work for, oh my gosh, they work really, really well.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's really clear is that, you're very psychologically minded, or you're very open, you're very curious, you are a seeker, you have been very dedicated and faithful on your own personal journey of growth, and with a highly spiritual focus. I know you're a drummer, and you're a mom and an entrepreneur, and you're very, very many people, and you have prioritized your well-being because you knew, right? Like, we've both talked about, what I had and what you had, and there was I think they call it trust. And growth occurs at the speed of trust. Isn't that amazing? I just love that saying. Anyway, so my point is, not everyone is as dedicated and prepared and ready as you were, as you were. What would you say to people that are kind of on, like, scared of it, or not certain about it, or, you know, don't know what to expect, or don't want to lose control? What would you say to people that are still not ready to take the plunge, so to speak, to change their lives, essentially?
So, you know, my journey comes in a song all along the way. So I guess my answer is kind of in a little ditty that came early on in this wild journey of ours. How do you know the unknown? How do you know the unknowable? Let go of the need to know. Feel it, embody it, let it in. Feel it, embody it, let it flow. I think the unknown is happening to us every day. And how do we participate consciously in the unknown so that it serves us versus happens to us?
Mm-hmm.
And I think these medicines are a dive into the unknown, but I also know the suffering, whatever fear that is, it's not even a better, it's a, okay, well, I can suffer over here and I can try all these things. Here's this other fear. And it's like, well, okay, but sometimes it's just about a choice of two fears. And you just, when I chose you, I had reached out to a trauma center, and as I said, I was broken, and I don't know the last time I had made an intuitive decision, and there was just a moment where I just knew. And so I would say that if that's happening inside of you, then to nurture that and to trust that there's something calling you into this unknown, this realm of possibility, and that with possibility, compassion, and permission, that, and a knowing that it's, the medicines aren't the miracle, they're part of the miracle, but knowing that then you have access to make a shift with everything else you're doing. I would encourage somebody to work with you and in your beautiful center, and to follow that, whatever impulse can be felt, to follow that calling, that these medicines, they really give us what we need, not what we want. But as I said, the unknown is happening to us all the time. So how do we make, when we can't make any choices and decisions from such a place of overwhelm, you know, where can we find little moments and space to make a decision? And so if this medicine is speaking to you, if it has, we know that the mental part, it's there, the research, like all the science, whatever part of your brain that needs the data is there. So then it's really, how do we let our heart be open to this unknown experience? And I would say that with the right person and the right time, it's worth your life. It's worth everything. They just help. They help. When they help a lot. And it's never what you think. It's so hard to imagine what journeying is like, no matter what your relationship with drugs or medicines are. It's so impossible to imagine where these medicines take you. And I think, honestly, just knowing that it takes time. You don't spend 35 years in suffering and it happens in one shot. For some people, I'm not going to limit. For some people, maybe it is, right? I mean, each of us with our different complexities. For someone like me, it's a road, you know, it's 3 years, and it may be many more years till I really understand what living regulated means. But also a skill that you have taught me is, whether I was batting at 10,000 before, how do I, and now it's at 1,000, you know, 1,000's really difficult, but my God, if I only spend time in the 1,000, then I'm missing the 9 that really has reduced. So these medicines reduce the fire, and they make it possible for us to help and heal ourselves. That's what I would say.
Wow. Powerful, powerful, and very profound words, Miss Aura. Profound words.
True.
Yeah, and it is not lost on me the huge amount of work that you have done. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is not. It can become a way of life, at least for a while, to get to the point where you can engage in your life without spending all your time healing, but for a period of time, some people may need to. Thank you so much, or I've taken up enough of your time. You have a wonderful time.
Thank you so much. And I really can't recommend Dr. DeCunha enough. She's kind, she's loving, she's present, and she will offer you a space where you can be welcomed as you are, where you are, and be given the wisdom and guidance that you need for healing. So I would highly, highly recommend working with Dr. DeCunha for this medicine and this work. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry, so I'm gonna end.
Okay.
Not so much. All right, people want to connect with you. Do I have your permission to release your contact information? Because you are an entrepreneur, you're a drummer, you are a therapist, you are a medicine therapist, plant medicine therapist. Yes, and people may want to connect with you, and I have your consent to communicate that. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. You take care.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.